Okay, it is my very, very great honor to introduce our featured presenter today, Miss Maureen Kennedy. Maureen has a degree in mathematics from Fontbonne University. She has a master's degree in counseling and student personal services from the University of Missouri. She worked at Penn Valley College as a counselor, where she initiated Remembrance Day as a way for people to honor those that they had lost. More importantly than any of that, though, she is one of the most beautiful people that you're ever going to meet. She will always welcome you with a warm smile and a big hug. I'm very lucky to call her one of my friends. Just don't interrupt her nap that she takes at 3 p.m. That's the big no-no right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Maureen Kennedy.
Okay, so we know the first slide works. Let's find out whether, let's see. The first thing I wanted to, Josh, your doll, and JJ, I love that song. Oh my goodness, yes, To Feel the Rain. Maybe we better all try to feel the rain now, right? Rather than waiting until we're buried in a shallow grave. I think that would be better. The first thing I want to tell you is that if this brings up anything for you, if you find that there are some things that you are feeling and you want to talk to somebody about it, this community is so wonderful about supporting people and supporting people on their journey that I think if you just reach out to people, they would be happy to talk with you and listen. There's my email address if you want to talk to me about things. I'm always happy to do it. That's really the first thing I want to tell you. Now let's see whether it works. All right. Let me just tell you a little bit about my journey. My dad died when I was 15. He was 55. We did not grieve. It really wasn't my mother's way. And I got the message that really tears were not, they were a sign of weakness. They weren't a sign of strength. As an adult, when I was in my 30s, I had been married, I got a divorce. It was a divorce that I initiated, I wanted it, and I gotta tell you, I cried all the time. I journaled, I cried, and I found that tears were really therapeutic for me. I did hospice. I want to tell you, I didn't go to the volunteer people and say, excuse me, but I want to do hospice. What happened was I read the brochure wrong. And I thought, I did. I read the brochure wrong. I thought I was going to be working with older people, and of course I was. But I thought it would be helping winterize their homes. And then I got to the training, and I was too proud to say, excuse me, I don't think I want to do that. But I did find, I learned so much during that time, and one of the things, I couldn't fix. I was always a fixer, and I couldn't fix what it was that people had. I couldn't make people well if they were dying. I couldn't bring the person back. But there seemed to be something that I could give, something that I could do. People told me that just by giving people space, holding space for them, or sitting with them as they cried, as they grieved, that seemed to be enough. That seemed to be a wonderful gift that I was giving people. So I learned so much from hospice. It was a really wonderful experience, but not exactly the way that you thought maybe I had gotten into that. My mom died, she was 89. So at the right time, she wanted to go, she had been sick. She wanted the death, and we wanted that for her. And it was still difficult. I thought this will be easy. Daddy's was so bad, Mom's will be fine. And it was still difficult. And it's because I think she had been woven into our lives. She had been around for a long time. And so it was kind of like, if you take a weaving and you pull one thread out, what happens to that weaving? That's how I visualized it. And then the last thing is that my friend died, as some of you know, and the interesting thing about that was that the day when he died, this most important event had happened in my life, and he didn't call me? Why hadn't I heard from him? Here I had this event that was so significant to me, and for some reason I couldn't understand why he hadn't said something to me. And that's kind of what happens sometimes. I think that sometimes things get a little confusing when we're grieving. Okay. This probably is the most important thing that I have to tell you, and that is that it all makes sense. If you are in the process of grieving, if you have been grieving, it all makes sense. And it's okay, however you're doing it. It really is okay. And while we can talk about the theory, at the same time, the biggest piece is, we could go back and you could look at go back to look here. Yeah, keynote. Well, anyway, let me talk. And you can look at my budget if you want. Everybody does it in their own way. We're all influenced by our culture and our family. There we go. And, I know, and David, sometimes if the theorists, we get the idea that maybe there are certain patterns and maybe I should be in a certain place in the grieving process for so long. Maybe it should be a year. Maybe it should be greater than that. Maybe I'm not doing it right. But just know that however you're doing it is okay. It really is okay. And that what you're feeling is normal. It really is normal. All of us are different. All of us will cope with this in different ways. And that's okay. Whoops. Hey, there we go. What we want, I think, when we grieve is that picture on the left. We think of it as a linear path, and we think that we're going to make progression, and that's just not what happened. What happens is really this over here. Isn't that what you have found? That really, instead of it being a straight path, we go all sorts of different ways. And sometimes it gets kind of all mixed up. But that's okay too. David, I think maybe. Now, I'm not going to belabor this. I don't want to really talk about theory. You can look this theory up. This was on whatsyourgrief.com. It's a wonderful website. But I do want to talk about Kubler-Ross because I think that she is really important. And these are the people, this is the one that you see all the time. People will say, well, are you angry? Why aren't you angry? Are angry? Well, okay, that's okay, because that's the second part of the process. But the Kubler-Ross, what she did is that she was working with people who were dying. And she said, you know what? I see patterns, and people seem to fall into these patterns. But it's a very flexible. She never meant it to be that you had to do denial, and then you had to do anger, and then you had to do, okay? And there are no time limits to it. It could be that you stay in denial for a while. Or you flip back and forth, or you go to acceptance and then go back. All of that is okay. And so if you have people say to you, this is what Kubler-Ross thought, that is exactly what the process should be, just know that really the idea is for things to be flexible and fluid. And so it may not be that you're going to go through. I can't tell you that I don't know that I went through all of that. I don't know. Not as I remember. The advantage, what she did for us, the way she helped us, is that she started talking about death, and she started talking about dying. And people had done it before, but for some reason, I think it's the fact that she used simple words that we all understand. She was that kind of writer. But even later, she said, that this isn't rigid. She meant it to support us rather than to box us all in and say that we had to do grieving in this particular way. I will tell you, after saying no theory, I really like Wharton. I like it because that's what I learned when I was doing hospice, and I really like that thing and I think this is what you do in the beginning anyway. You make the loss real, and then you feel the pain. And that's what I was doing that when I said, you know, with my friend, I couldn't understand why he hadn't contacted me. Well, it's because I couldn't believe it. And I was making it real, and then feeling the pain. But remembering again that we grieve as part of a system, and we grieve ourselves, you know, in our own way, and we bring to it our own personalities and our own backgrounds, and that makes a difference. So if these things help you, I think it's great. I think sometimes, I think when you're grieving, what happens is that words need to be simpler. I found that if I read anything, it better be something really simple and it better be something really short, because my attention span was always was short. Yes, sir? Okay. So if you are grieving, what do you do? Look at that blue handout, and I think you'll see some things that this really just repeats it, but there are some ideas on there that what you can do to comfort yourself. I think the big thing is that if you people want to talk about it, I think talking about it is real helpful. I think it helps to cry about it, but I'm a believer in that. If you're a journaler, I think, and I think it helps sometimes to write it down. Sometimes what happens is that we may find that our friends don't want to listen to us anymore because we've told the story so many times. And so sometimes that's why journaling helps, because you can say that story, tell that story again and again. I also think that's why bereavement groups are so good, because you can tell your story again and again. And it's okay, because everybody knows that that's part of what's happening. Not everybody's going to talk. Not everybody's going to cry. Not everybody's going to journal. And that's okay too. So I think you just have to find the things that do work for you. You know, I want to use this clicker now. I think it is important to identify what does comfort you. How are you comforted? What do you do? And I think it helps. You know, I just took you through my griefography, you know, death, and to go through that, because it was like, oh yeah, you know, Maureen, tears really do help you. Journaling kind of does. Maybe you need to go back and do some journaling again. So for you, if you, one of the things that you could do would be to kind of go through what your losses have been, what have your losses been, and how did you cope with that? And that it gives you an idea then of how you might cope in the future. And I think sometimes being a little bit prepared is helpful. So what does happen also when somebody is grieving is that you don't want to do anything. And I think it is important to try to establish some goals. And on the other side of that handout, there's a thing of what happens, and it's really kind of in the beginning of any crisis. And what happens sometimes is that either we want to sleep all day, or we're up all the time. And that might just be, today I'm sleeping, and tomorrow I'm up. I mean, it can be that erratic that you slide among those. It may be that you have foods that you want to eat, and so you're eating all the time. You're eating peppermint patties all the time. Or you're not eating at all, because everything just kind of makes you sick. And so there is that sort of swing back and forth, that sort of thing can happen. But having some goals, or even if all your goal is to get up and make your bed, to get up and walk around a little bit, to get up and exercise, maybe not exercise, take a walk, get outside, see be in the sunshine. Those sorts of things can be real comforting. Important times of the year are tough. Anniversaries are tough. You all know this, that, Christmas, the holidays can be very difficult. They're certain, maybe your birthday. So just remembering and kind of being prepared for those important times of the year. You know I believe in deep breathing, and you know that I really think that just kind of sometimes, especially if you're finding that you're just anxious and you're doing all sorts of things, that really to kind of settle back and do some deep breathing and kind of to examine what it is that you are, that is going on, and just be gentle with yourself about the fact that of what you're feeling. You know, I think we sometimes can get in a spin when with grief, with all sorts of things. He said, she said, why didn't I should have, and have regrets. And I think if we just are gentle with ourselves and just allow, you know, just to kind of sit back and kind of slow ourselves down so that we really are a little bit more gentle with what it is that we have done. And try not to, it's hard sometimes not to have some regrets. But the idea, I think, then is what do we do in the future? And then in time, I think what you do is that, how are you going to honor the person? That really is the big question. What are we going to do with the energy from this relationship? And then how do you honor the person who is gone, or the relationship that is over, the pet who has died? What are you going to do? How are you going to handle that? David? Okay. So that's how we comfort ourselves. You know, how we comfort others just follows that, doesn't it? If somebody needs to talk, we listen. Somebody needs to cry, we let them. We're not very good about letting people cry. I was taught in hospice not to touch the person when they're crying, because then they stop. And it's really okay for people to cry. I think it's important to go to the visitation. If this is a death that's immediate, I think you want to go to the visitation if you can. It does help, doesn't it? And again, it's that ministry of presence. You don't even have to say anything. You can just sit and be. And I think that is helpful. I think people feel that support. It's tough to do. I find it tough to do, and I know the value of it. And I still find it difficult to go to a visitation. But it does help. And then being there in the months ahead. You know, we think, even though we know it's not true, I think we want our friends to move ahead, move on with it, you know, get on with it. And it doesn't work like that. And so to remember, to help people remember the anniversaries for you to remember, when your friend's mother's birthday was, or what close to the time of the anniversary, that's very helpful. That's very helpful for you to say to someone, you know, I was thinking of your mom. This time of year always reminds me. To acknowledge that. I think sometimes we think that maybe the survivors, or, you know, maybe I'll make them cry. Or maybe I will, maybe what will happen is that they'll remember. Let me tell you, you don't forget. I mean, you all know that. Wouldn't you agree with me? You just don't forget. And that person who has died is always right here. They're always there. And it's okay. It's actually a comfort to have somebody say, you know, this is close to that time of year, isn't it? Yeah, it really is. The next slide, I think, says, you know, if they need to make goals, help them make goals, that sort of thing. And then try to remember those important times in the year. I can't remember what's next. Oh. What kind of time do I have? Okay. What do you say? What do you say? I'd really love to have a handout and have it connected so that we have something that says, what do you say to somebody? What do we say when somebody comes back here? And what do we say if we go to a visitation? You know, what kinds of things do you say? What helps?
Just to say, I'm here for you.
survivors say when somebody does say that. Anything else? You know, I'd really like to collect those things. You could, yeah.
I was talking to Melanie in the kids' room this morning, and she said her favorite thing to say is, "You're in my thoughts."
Okay, yeah. You're in my thoughts. Yeah. Yeah. I like, yeah, good. I'm so sorry you're hurting. Okay? Yeah.
If I could take the pain away, I would.
Okay, if I could take the pain away, I would.
This is so hard.
Oh, this is so hard, yeah. Yes. Even saying that, this is so hard. You know, I read something that said that what we really want is for somebody to say, it matters. It really matters. Your loved one mattered. You matter. And so even if we say something like that, I think that's helpful. Yes. Bring food. It is one way. Oh, thank you. Oh my God. It is one way for us to acknowledge, isn't it? To do that. What about what not to say? That's the next one. We're in a better place. Yeah. God wanted your angel. Yeah. That's crappy. They're out of pain. Yeah, yeah. That's right. Yeah. Well, go out right now and get that dog. It's really, yeah.
While I was grieving, I had someone tell me that losing my spouse wasn't nearly as bad as her losing her mother. So I kind of didn't know what to say.
Yeah. Okay. Oh. That someone said to him, losing your wife isn't as bad as I lost my mother. That's worse. Okay. Yeah.
As a person in my life, I've never been going through a hard time. The idea of just make yourself happy and turn the crowd upside down rather than dealing with what you're experiencing.
Yeah. And so what he said is that sometimes people want you to be happy and don't be sad. It's that thing of they're in a better place. Whoever said that. Okay, here, this is a personal thing. I will tell you that. And on the list, that actually is something that people say is okay. I just think you want to personalize it. I think if you say, I'm sorry for your loss, it's as if you forgot that it was my mother, or you forgot it was your, that's the only thing there, is that I think you want to personalize it. And I think if you know something about the person who died, gosh, to be able to say that I think it is really, really important. Galen asked me to add this to make sure that, because he said, you get those notes at work and you don't know what to say. And so I think some of the things that you all have said really are helpful. And what I'm going to do is take all of those and we can transcribe it all somehow and put it in some sort of handout and have it somehow connected on the website. Next one, David. All right, here we go. Grieving without God. I thought John DeLynn said it just beautifully when he talked. Because he talked about the fact that, he didn't believe in life after death. He just wasn't sure. He wasn't sure, that he didn't know. But that it meant that we live each day. And to me, that's what this means, is that we live each day, that we feel the rain, that we go out and feel the sun. And I think that it means that, in some ways, I think it's like we're lucky in that we're lucky in that without thinking about life after death, we appreciate today more. And that's the idea, is to appreciate today more. The thing that I found is it didn't matter to me whether God existed or not when somebody died. I was still hurting. It just really I didn't give a shit about that. I mean, I really didn't. All I cared about was the fact that I was hurting. And I didn't understand it. And so I think the important thing for us is just to remember that each day is precious. Each day is important. And, hugs are important. And being with people is important. And you have to do it today. Because it's the only thing we're guaranteed. I mean, it's all we got right now is just right now. It's very Buddhist, I know. This thing about 3 things you want to do, I have a friend who's very ill. She has ovarian cancer, and probably, she would, who knows. But she has done this really cool thing that she says, okay, here are 3 things I want to do. She really wants to go to Europe. She can't physically, she knows physically she can't do it. But she has other things that she really wants to do. I want to have lunch with so-and-so. So she makes a list of 3 things that I just think it's wonderful. And it's made me really realize how important it is just to set some goals for today. We can do it too. There's no reason why we can't. We can say, these are the things that I really want to do today. I really want to accomplish this, and then go do it. And it may be just hugging everybody you see and loving everybody you see. And it may be going outside the sun today. I just think is wonderful. It's going to be another beautiful day. The next thing's resources. There are just a couple things here. Okay. Greta Christina has written a book about loss and death. Greta Christina is an atheist blogger, okay? And she has a book, and she does talk about, how difficult it is in our society to really, in our Christian world, to not believe and in life after death and in God, and especially life after death. Her dad had just died, and then she found out she had cancer, and she just talks about that. So it's an easy read. I would recommend it. It's an ebook. There are a couple other things that I found. Kendall Gibbons, who's with All Souls Unitarian Church, has a chapter in a book, and the book is Parenting Beyond Belief. And the chapter in the book is on death and grieving, and it's wonderful. I just found it on the internet. So it is somebody here local. She was in Minneapolis when the book has been out since '07, but it has some wonderful things about what parents can say to kids about dying. It's just a wonderful article. These other things, Grief Beyond Belief, of course, Rebecca Hensler, she's an atheist, and she lost a child, and she went looking for resources and couldn't find any, and so she started this website. Oh my God, it's wonderful. And so that's what she did. So that's where she put her energy, see, and that's how she honors her child. It's just great. What Your Grief is, it's another website, very secular. I have some brochures that they have put out. It's a good website. You can go on all these websites and, oh, hi, I'm fine. You can go on all these websites. And, put in, here's my question. And you'll get answers, and they have other information there, that they've stored about their answers. Secular therapy, of course, if you feel like you want to talk to someone about your grief and loss, that's a way to find a secular therapist. I put Oasis down because I just think, you all are so wonderful, and on the Facebook page, when somebody says something and they're hurting, people just respond so beautifully. mean, it's a wonderful community, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful way of responding and supporting people. And then the last thing is that, it's my hospice thing. Hospice, Kansas City Hospice is affiliated with Solace House, and it is a place where you can go and they have grief groups. It's a wonderful resource. I happen to be on one of their committees, but they have adult groups and they have kids groups. When they started, 2000 I think is when they started, again, two mothers who saw that their kids were grieving, couldn't find any resources, and so they started Solace House, and it used to be for kids. They have expanded and now have and affiliated with Kansas City Hospice. You do not have had to have gone through hospice in order to go to one of their groups. I think they're 6 weeks in length. They normally have 10 groups going at the same time, all volunteer run. Normally half for adults, half for kids. So it's a wonderful, wonderful resource. I have a brochure about them, but again, you can go on the website and see kind of what they're all about. And then the last thing I want to do is just read you something, and I think it just explains grief and loss really, really well. And Melissa and Michael and I were at Gateway to Reason, and Hemant Mehta, don't tell anybody, Hemant Mehta talked about, a bunch of things, but one of the things he did was read this to us, and it really spoke to us, and so I thought it would speak to you too. It's about a guy, and again, it's online. You can find all these things online. As for grief, you'll find it comes in waves. When the ship is first wrecked, you're drowning with wreckage all around you. Everything is floating around you and reminds you of the beauty and the magnificence that the ship was and is no more. And all you can do is float. You find some piece of the wreckage and you hang on to it for a while. Maybe it's a physical thing. Maybe it's a happy memory or a photograph. Maybe it's a person who's floating also. For a while, all you can do is float and stay alive. In the beginning, the waves are 100 feet tall and crash over you without mercy. They come 10 seconds apart and don't even give you time to catch your breath. All you can do is hang on and float. After a while, maybe weeks, maybe months, you'll find the waves are still 100 feet tall, but they come further apart. And when they come, they still crash over you and wipe you out. But in between, you can breathe, you can function. You never know what's going to trigger the grief. It could be a song, it could be a picture, a street intersection, the smell of coffee. It can be just about anything, and the wave comes crashing. But in between waves, there is life. Somewhere down the line, and it's different for everyone, you'll find that the waves are only 80 feet high, or maybe they're only 50 feet tall. And while they still come, they come further apart. You can see them coming. An anniversary, a birthday, a holiday, landing at O'Hare. You can see it coming, and for the most part, you can prepare yourself. And when it washes over you, you know that somehow you will again come out on the other side. Soaking wet, sputtering, still hanging on to some tiny piece of the wreckage, but you'll come out. And this was an older guy, so take it from an older woman. The waves never stop coming, and somehow you never really want them to. But you learn that you'll survive them, and other waves will come, and you'll survive them too. And if you're lucky, you'll have lots of scars from lots of loves and lots of shipwrecks. So wishing you comfort, my friends, wishing you comfort. Thank you.
We ask that you kind of keep it to just a couple of sentences, make sure there is a question.
First of all, thank you. Second of all, is there any way you can sort of prepare yourself? You know that it's coming. What can you do to get ready for it?
Like your stepmother. You know, I think the thing you want to do is not to have any regrets. So make sure you say everything. I think make sure you tell the person that tell her you love her, thank her. That's a hospice thing. Here's hospice. Who else has done hospice? It's so it's, I love you, thank you, forgive me, I forgive you. Yeah, I think so too. So it's I love you, I love you, please forgive me, I forgive you. What was the other one? I can't remember. Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Before my mom died, I just said to her, I hope what happens, what you want to have happen, whatever it is. So that would be the big thing I'd say to you. Just make sure you said everything you want to say. You know, and even if it's going to make you cry or make everybody cry. Any other advice you have?
I would say just exactly what she's saying. It's really just, spend as much time as you can with your stepmom. Really just kind of be there and sort of appreciate her presence. I mean, that's going to be so important for her too.
You're welcome. We'll be here too, Sarah? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I forget it. Yeah.
Okay. You partially answered my question. But my brother and sister and I expect our mom to die in a couple of months. She's 99. And her body is like an old car that's just wearing out.
Yeah.
There were pains I made. Like this would be difficult. But think like here doesn't.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Really tough.
It's sad as a teenager that I wished I would have apologized as forgiveness for it. And I just put it off. And
yeah.
Now, Mom, you can't talk to her. You have to get right in her ear and shout really loud.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if she understands that she's had some strokes, so her speech is really difficult to understand. And I need to do all the things she said about thank you and that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
I don't know if she'll hear me.
They say that people do. They say that even when people are in a coma that they can hear. Even if somebody has Alzheimer's, people sense love. They may not exactly know who you are, but they sense the love. I think you want to do it for you.
Yeah, I do.
I think it's, and if you want to say forgive me, those are important pieces to do, I think.
Yeah, well, I know what it feels like to have your child do say some pretty mean and nasty things to you, because I've experienced that recently.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I'll ever forgive him for doing that.
Yeah.
And I hope I didn't do something like that to my mom.
And I think again, it's really important for you to tell her all of that. And I don't know, I just believe that people know it. Sometimes even holding somebody's hand, you can convey all of that. But I also think you do it for you.
Yeah, well, thanks.
You have to forgive you, which is part of it too. Yeah.
Do you have anything unique or
sorry,
different?
I forget. I'm sorry, Lila.
Do you have anything unique or different, like when you're dealing with children, or advice you give to a child who is the friend of another child that's grieving?
I don't know as much about kids, I have to admit. Who's a kid? What do you have any? I think the principles are pretty much the same. I think to say to the kid, for the kids to say that about, I think about your parent, I think about your mom, it's very sad. I think also doing some rituals I'm kind of a ritual person. I mean, I was raised Catholic, that's probably why, but I really do believe in rituals. I mean, can you do together with the child, I don't mean you, I mean the two kids, can they do some things to remember the parent? Can they do some things to remember, donate, or, even do a scrapbook? Those sorts of things I think are always that sort of helpful. Let me show you this article too, because I think it really is really helpful. And anybody else have any advice here?
I just wanted to add, I think one of the most important things,
as having experienced loss in some really tragic things as my own child, above all, don't patronize them and don't sugarcoat the truth. It's important for them, just like adults, to have the opportunity to bear witness to the reality of the situation. It's important not to put it in nice terms. It's important not to hold things back that can help them understand where this grief fits into their part of the world. And it's important to accompany that reality with love. This is hard. We're going to get through it together. When this happens, here's what to expect, and I want you to know I'm here. Just to always have, yes, the real story, but also somewhere they can go where they can trust. I think is really important. That was something that was done for me when I lost my mom, when my parents got divorced, through a number of lesser and greater tragedies. Just people treating me like I deserve to know the truth. That helped me so much. Not just to feel like a kid in that moment.
Thanks, Jordan. I think one of the things that they do say is, don't say the person's asleep. Well, they're just asleep. Because then kids are afraid of going to sleep, or if you go to sleep. So that was one thing. But thank you, Gigi. I think that's, yeah.
I just have a question for you. I've been involved in a lot of what you're talking about, but not these groups. If you happen to be a second individual, and you're talking about the groups of hospice,
Yes.
how do you deal with that?
Okay, I just went through some training in order to be involved with them, and that was one of the things I asked them. We asked them about a couple of things, and it's a friend of mine and I that a friend got me involved in this. But that's one of the things I said. I said, if I suggest to people that they come to your groups, you got to make sure. Now, of course, if you're in a group and somebody says, I believe in God, I mean, of course you're going to come into a group. But the facilitators are not going to go that way, okay? They're going to make it much more secular. And they assured me of that. Now, in some ways, I kind of feel like I need to go through the training and see what happens, just to be sure, because it is difficult. One of the guys who does one of the kids groups said, no, the kids won't be like that. And I said, well, kids, though, yeah, kids can be all sorts of things, but I think kids are much more open than adults are. And I think kids can say, you can say, I don't believe that. And the kids say, oh, okay, that's fine. Let's go play over here. I think that's what kids are.
What is the subject of God comes out? What if they are reading into that? How do you, as a secular person, how do you handle that?
Well, I think part of what if I'm talking to if I'm doing bereavement work, to me that's altogether different than if I'm in a group and a facilitator. But if I'm doing bereavement group, I just go with where the person is. Okay, so I just go with where they are. But in those groups, I think they just try to, I'm looking at it from the outside, but I think they just try to steer the people to more general sort of things. We all miss the person, we all are missing the person that died who we love. But in some ways, they have been very open. And I, from the beginning, said, I'm working with a secular group. There's no way I can have somebody come. And they have all been really open. I have a feeling we have a few closeted atheists in this group. But I'm still looking at that just to make sure. Who's got the mic? I'll talk to you afterwards. Yes.
Well, this isn't about grieving so much. This is about family history. This will be the last chance for that person to get the history from them. And you need to find something to write in and have them to start to write things as they remember.
You know, can I say one more thing? The one thing that I would say for you, those of you who someone is dying and you know that they're terminal, to remember that you are losing the person. They are losing everything, just everything. And so they're losing you, they're losing, you know, they're losing that sunshine, they're losing all of that. And so to remember that too, and to at least acknowledge that. So if you're crying, that's fine. Because if you're dying, don't you want to think that maybe people are going to miss you? And maybe feel a little bit bad or say, hey, that's fine. And so if you cry, I think sometimes when people are visiting a loved one, they think, I shouldn't cry. It's okay. It really is okay. I mean, really, that's the thing I would say. Thank you all.
Thank you.